Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the unqualified command of the Second Amendment, okay? And of course I'm talking about the NYSERPA versus Bruin Supreme Court decision on gun rights. And when I heard Justice Thomas phrase it that way, it blew my mind. Now, most people, have never heard the term unqualified in this context, okay? And there's no reason why they would. I mean, it's just not the way we normally talk, okay? Because I have an accounting background, and I have, basically I'm a trained auditor, okay? So I went to school, I got an accounting degree. One of the things I studied was auditing. When I got out of college, for a couple of years, I was involved in some audits, and one of the things that that as auditors we'll do is we'll audit the financial statements of companies. An audit is basically just a check. You're checking the financial statements of companies, and it could also be a personal financial statement as well. And what you do is you issue either an unqualified opinion or a qualified opinion, okay? And I gotta tell you guys, when I first heard this phrase in my auditing class, I think I was something like either 19 or 20 years old. I didn't understand it, had never heard it put in that context. I understand what the word qualify meant. Qualify in terms of, if you qualify for something as if you meet the requirements. But in this context, it has a completely different meaning, okay? When we in auditing, when we say we're giving an unqualified opinion, it means that we're giving an opinion that these financial statements are, in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, without exception. Okay, so that's what unqualified means. It means without exception. If you qualify an opinion, right, in accounting circles, right, and of course these terms, I guess, go back to a much earlier version of English that people would speak. Because again, we don't talk that way these days. But if you qualify an opinion, it means that you're giving it with exceptions. And an exception might be, for example, if I'm doing an audit, if I was not there, let's say at the beginning of the year, right, or when they did an inventory, right, or when they did last year's ending inventory, right? That's an exception, right? It's like, okay, everything looks good except for the fact that I wasn't there at the beginning of the year to inspect the inventory. So I would be qualifying the financial statements with that. I'd be issuing that except for. Everything is good except for that. I wasn't there to check it at the beginning of the year. So when Justice Thomas writes or speaks of the unqualified command of the Second Amendment, what he's saying is that, that's the command of the Second Amendment, and there's no exceptions, there's no buts, right? Because a lot of times when you have like a lot of these FUDs, right, that talk about gun rights, there's always like the except for, there's the but, there's no exception, okay? Now, the interesting thing is that a lot of the founding fathers actually, like in some of the writings, they did speak of exceptions. Like, for example, I think it was George Washington that he said that people who are peaceable should not. Basically, what he's saying is peaceful people should not be restricted from carrying and owning guns. Right? I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact words, but that's an exception, right? So when he's making that quote, right, when he's saying that thing, George Washington is actually giving a qualified opinion. He's qualifying. He's saying that, yeah, people have the right to bear, have a right to carry guns, but he's making an exception. He's saying the people that are peaceable, right? But that's not what went into the Second Amendment, which was negotiated, right? Which everybody agreed to, okay? The Second Amendment, okay, does not have any exceptions, right? It's unqualified, as the way Justice Thomas put it, okay? There's no exceptions. What that means is, I don't care how many felonies you have, I don't care how many people you might have murdered, okay? If you're out on the street, okay, you have a right to a gun. Now, how do we deal with that as a society? Well, obviously, the obvious answer here is if somebody is so dangerous that they shouldn't have a gun, they don't belong out in society. They need to either be locked up in jail or institutionalized if they're crazy. But you know, putting extremely dangerous people or crazy people or dangerously crazy people into society and saying that, okay, we're letting you out, but we're just not going to let you have guns, doesn't make them any less dangerous, because they can find other weapons, other tools. They can get access to a car and run over people, you know, get a gallon of gasoline and start fires and burn down buildings with entire families and living in them. So the point here is that if somebody's that dangerous that they don't deserve guns, they don't deserve to be, they should not be out in society. They might need treatment, they might need hospitalization, they might need medication, whatever. But at the point where somebody is deemed safe enough to be out in society, they get a gun. Okay. That's, I just wanted to bring this, you know, make this point to you guys that when I first heard of the way that Clarence Thomas phrased this, when he said the unqualified command of the Second Amendment, he's pointing out that there's no exceptions in the Second Amendment. Okay, and here's the thing: it's a right to bear arms. Okay, it doesn't say right to bear small arms; it's a right to bear arms. Arms is short for armaments. We have a right to machine guns, okay? The entire NFA Gun Control Act is dead, okay? It's just a matter of time, but it's gonna die. It's gonna die probably by death by 1,000 cuts. Don't expect any big court case to come out to strike down the NFA. It's not gonna happen like that. What's going to happen is the lawyers are going to start attacking bits and pieces of it. They'll go after the solvent traps. They'll go after the forced reset triggers. They'll go after the bump stock. These are all going to be separate cases. And this is good because right now we're on the offensive, right? And what we don't want to do is we don't want to attack the gun controllers, you know, where they're the strongest, where they can unite. We want to attack them from all directions, you know, every day, constantly. Okay, and the way that we're going to do this is with lots of small lawsuits that target, you know, small individual infringements on gun rights. So I just wanted you guys to pay attention to that, because you're going to hear this phrase over and over again. You're going to hear about the unqualified command of the Second Amendment. This is now an old word that is coming to the front, you know, it's coming back into our language. Okay, I've never heard of that word that phrase put that way anywhere except, you know, anywhere outside of accounting and auditing. Okay, but all of a sudden now this is going to become a very common word that you guys are going to hear. The word unqualified means without exception. Remember that. Okay, thanks for watching. Make sure you guys are following me on my uncensored channels. On Odyssey, I'm Pocono Tactical. On Rumble, I'm Pocono Guns. My backup channels on YouTube are Absolute Gun Rights, a Pocono Shooting, and then I got the original Safa channel that goes back to 2006. I'll talk to you guys soon.